Welcome to Footy Kickin Good. We are going through our Brisbane Lions episode today. I'm Jamie Moraes, joined by the usual suspects in Michael Flynn, modelled his own Mo from the great Joe Danaher.
I did. Yeah. Dirty Mo. Gotta love it.
And Lions mega fan and the man behind Champion Data's pressure gauge, Joel Landman.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me back.
Yeah, how is it working for Champion Data? Do you get a lot of nice insight that you can't reveal with us boys, or?
Oh, a little bit here and there. I think most of it's what you see is what you get. It's just kind of the back end, how it's distributed, but not revealing anything if I had it anyway.
Yeah.
So what the hell is the pressure gauge? Like I see it pop up and I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, the Lions pressure's at 200. I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, each different kind of pressure act has a different kind of grading, I guess.
Yeah.
So it all averages out. Obviously, 200's up on the higher end.
Yeah.
So that's, real closing, hard physical kind of pressure as opposed to kind of corralling and that lower grading score. So I guess that's a rough insight.
Yeah, honestly, that makes sense. Yeah.
Without getting too technical. Now, look, your boys, reigning premiers.
Yeah, well done.
Watching the grand final, ended up being a very comfortable win, which would have been great after the Collingwood grand final the year before.
Certainly, yes.
At what point in the grand final did you feel like, yeah, we have it here?
It's a bit of a known fact that I'm more on the pessimistic side in terms of I never like to get too ahead of myself.
No, I'm the same.
Even at half time, like obviously that second quarter was unreal, but I have seen us and, many teams lose from kind of, it was still mid 40s in a half. That's definitely doable, especially with Sydney's kind of firepower and ability to score. But I kind of said to myself, look, kick the first two of the third and it's probably unassailable. And I think we did that pretty quickly. So it was probably 5-10 minutes into the third.
When you were in the third quarter, like let's say halfway through, were you completely at ease or was there still a part of you that was like, oh?
Probably from halfway through the third, I started thinking, look, we're home here.
Yeah.
Started enjoying it more rather than sweating.
The players looked like they were enjoying it at that stage too. Yeah, like they knew.
And I mean, it was not like there was ever a moment where it kind of looked like it might flip the momentum as well. We controlled it pretty well the whole way through. And the one thing I'll say is I don't think we had a bad player on the day. That was really impressive as well.
Probably spot on there.
Yeah.
Quick, before we go to the ins and outs, did you have a favourite moment from the grand final? Like, was there one thing that stood out for you?
Obviously Ashcroft's goal was up there just because of what he's been through coming back. I couldn't believe myself with Hipwood's little snag there as well. That was
Jason
pretty remarkable. So there's a couple, like there were so many moments for me, obviously in a winner. Like Kai Lohmann's one of my favourite players too, and he lit it up early. So
I actually felt like he was a little bit stiff maybe to miss out on that Norm Smith. I just feel like he won the game for you guys.
He did. He set it up
He was
early.
good when the contest was on.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
I agree. Let's move on to the ins and outs.
Yes.
Flinny, that's your cue. Ins and outs. Big Levi Ashcroft comes in, pick number 5, father-son. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Sam Marshall, another really great midfielder through the academy. Not sure how they're going to fit in all these midfielders now. What do you think about Sam Day as an in for you guys?
Look, I think there were worse options. I think they like what he can do as kind of a pinch hit ruck. And we're looking for that a lot with obviously Danaher was stepping up in that sense.
Doing the same thing.
So they can, and look, I've said to a few people, if he plays, 15 or so games and can kick 25 plus and pinch it in the ruck, you definitely take that.
As well as he can just be a target man. Going forward. There's so many good small forwards in that team that just need like a reference point.
Sure.
And I feel like Hipwood is more of like the different sort of key forward.
Yeah. And he was quite good in the few games that he played for the Suns last year.
Yeah.
He's always like he's been around forever. Yeah. It feels like.
Yeah. It feels
and he's
like
shown glimpses of like, oh, this guy could be something.
Yeah.
And then he just his body's let him down.
In saying that though, he has been around forever, but I still think he's 31, 32, maybe a touch older, but it was more so not performance, but I just feel like he got pushed out a bit at Gold Coast. So I don't know. We'll see what he can do in maybe more limited games, but we'll get to have a good look at him.
Ty Gallup's the other in, who's an academy pickup, a full forward or a forward prospect, from what I hear.
Yeah, I do know a bit on him actually. Working at Werribee, we played Brizzy in the prelim last year, and that was Ty's first VFL game. Had us worried there for a quarter and a half. He's got real good hands. Took 3 or 4 contested clunks and kicked a couple. So promising again. He's, as everyone knows, key forwards take a bit longer. He's pretty raw, but liked the signs I saw in that small glimpse I got.
I'd be happy to hear that, especially with Logan Morris last year. Great this year.
Good forward player.
As for the outs, Joey Danaher, again, one we'll get into. Jared Lyons, Jackson Pryor, Harry Sharp traded over to Melbourne. Anything that stands out with the outs for you, Joel?
Not too much. Obviously, we'll speak on Danaher later. The one, I was actually higher on Jackson Pryor than a lot of other people, where I thought he probably didn't get the gigs. I understand it's hard to crack into that team, but he was pretty tough, always... second efforts were good if he kind of turned it over, that kind of stuff. Sharp, he's good, but he's that kind of player that's a good impact sub kind of player with his speed and endurance.
Did Brisbane try and hang on to him, or were they pretty happy to get that deal done?
I think once he expressed his interest, they kind of were there to...
You couldn't fit into the side.
Yeah. Correct. And those, delistings, Kalen Lane, Jimmy Madden... Carter Michael, don't think they really, especially the latter two with being half-backs. A lot of depth around there, especially with Kitty and another guy, Luke Beacon, who we picked up, I think, mid-year, who looked real good in the VFL. So,
no, definitely.
Yeah, no surprises, really.
Let's move on to Joey Danaher and what his impact now leaving this side is going to be, because obviously reigning premiers... I thought he was extremely influential in the side. I thought he even should have been All-Australian last year, if you ask me. 2024, his stats, 15 disposals a game, 2 goals a game, 6 marks a game.
Yeah.
I thought he was influential when you really needed someone to stand up.
Yeah.
He was always there.
Yep. Agreed. I find it funny because a lot of people just focus on he can't kick, all this stuff, and then they look back and realise, geez, leaving a big hole there, isn't he? Especially with... Nothing against Morris, but had a good year, but he's still raw. I don't really know whether we'll see if he can play the full 23. And again, Hipwood, everyone's got their doubts on him, but we love Joey. He stands up when he's really needed.
What are your thoughts on Hipwood? Just quickly, just because I feel like he's a bit of a whipping boy sometimes.
He is. Look, it's weird. I feel like he plays well at certain grounds. I think I saw him twice at Marvel last year and he kicked 11 combined.
He absolutely destroyed the Western Bulldogs there last year, I think it was.
Yeah, it was the Dogs. He kicked 6. One thing I've always said about him is I think he's a big confidence player. If he nails one from 50 or kicks a good one early, he's probably a bit more up and about, has a better game. But he definitely has his moments of brilliance. He probably has some moments the other way, but I guess a fair few players do as well. He's a bit like Dan McState in terms of what he's copped. I'm always a bit more lenient on those kind of guys because key forwards, it's obviously a tough gig. But really his first year as the number one guy up there. We'll see what he can do.
People forget as well, going back to Joe Danaher, that second semi-final, was it, against GWS?
Yeah.
He kicked the winning goal, and it was like a difficult set shot, especially for his left foot. And he just slotted it, and it was just like, and he knew at that stage that was going to be his last year. I think he said that he knew going into the year. So for him to kick that goal to keep their their finals campaign alive, I think that he's when he has to stand up, he's pretty. Yeah. He was just that guy.
It's underrated. Not many players can do that.
And the funny thing is, as much as he has struggled with his set shot goal kicking, I knew he was going to kick that.
Well, he nailed.
He's just that sort of guy.
He nailed one before that. I think 2 or 3 minutes before.
Yeah.
But the best part about that for me was that mark he took on Sam Taylor, one-on-one contested. You in that clutch moment, It's hard to outmark Sam Taylor.
Probably the best defender. Really one-on-one in the league as well.
And then just had the nerve to go back and gave him a bit after as well, which is rare for him. So
he's good. So I just want to ask, in terms of his influence on this side, could you see, like, let's say, I mean, I know Brisbane finished 5th, but I mean, you'd say if they won the premiership, they're probably a top 4 side. Would you say Joey Danaher out of that side maybe makes you drop a couple of spots, or do you think you guys can still compete at the same level, or have you got cover for him? Basically, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I've kind of been saying we will slide a couple spots. We'll, maybe between the 5th and 8th, we should finish. I'd hope 5th or 6th is where I'm kind of looking at.
Yeah.
It's always hard to fill a gap of a key forward that's kicking 50, 60 a year. But again, our small forward, it's whether we go smaller and kind of have good depth there. I mean, you look at Link McCarthy, he did his ACL and Lohman came in and won't lose his spot. So they should give Link a couple in the VFL early, I would imagine, and then see if they bring him in that spot, or whether they just, stick with Sam Day or even Sticks, who they got from Hawthorn, Brandon Ryan. Yeah, he only got the one game last year and then got subbed out at half time. So
against the Hawks as well.
Yeah, we'll see if he's developed into...
I think even like Archie showed last year that he's more than capable of being like a 30 goal a season type forward.
For sure.
But yeah, I'm a bit more bullish. Like I think the only reason that the Lions would slide would be like just like a mental lapse, I suppose, similar to like a Geelong, Collingwood, the last two that have won the flag and then sort of taken their foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah,
I think if the team still has the same mentality as last year, they'll do the same thing again. Like in terms of the performance, making. I've got him in the top 4. I just think that the team as a whole is better on last year's when you consider that Kitty Coleman comes back in. You've got another Ashcroft who could be as good, if not better, than his brother. And it just the team looks really stacked to me. Like it's still like at the end of the day, yes, Joey's going to kick you 60 goals, but I feel like all the smalls are just going to contribute a little bit more. Like they're all going to add 5 goals for the season, sort of thing.
I mean, one thing I will say is the difference between last year and 23, I felt like Charlie Cameron had he got a lot more attention. He had a bit more of a down. I don't know the exact amount he kicked, but kind of we relied more on that one Danaher target, and then we had Lohman and a few guys step up. Archie for 30 goals or something like that. So potentially it's Cameron gets a bit more back to his best, but
that's
also
what I was feeling,
do we need another few goals from the midfield as well? Like McCluggage always has 30 shots on goal a year. His goal kicking has gotten better, to be fair to him. But it's more that actually Neil's been kicking a few, but it's those Dunkley types, Ashcroft types, whether they can kind of hit the scoreboard a bit more as well.
Well, you guys have already dug into our second topic, which was, can the Lions avoid that premiership hangover heading into this year? And I think you've kind of nailed it on the head with the cats and the pies.
I think this will be the year that curse is broken. Yeah. I honestly can't see them having a hangover. Because I just think when you have such a strong draft hand with like superstar talent, they're going to be putting pressure on guys in the team to perform. So then it's like there's pressure on everyone. As I think Collingwood and Geelong the last 2 years, there may be a little bit of complacency. Maybe a little bit of like there's not as much fight for spots.
I think Brisbane have lost that complacency with that loss in the 23 grand final.
Exactly.
I feel like that's the mental edge where they had to really dig deep to be able to go and perform again in 24. And I feel like they know how to keep that mental edge.
And the difference between let's say Sydney getting whacked in 2 grand finals is like Brisbane was so close to winning it that I feel like it adds fire to the belly. Like we can win it. Whereas the Swans was a bit more like dejecting.
For Brisbane, the mentality would have been we just had to be that little bit better.
And
like just fix up a couple little pieces.
The other factor I feel like a little bit is obviously Pies and Cats. I don't think their turnover was too bad after the granny, but we found out how important Nathan Murphy was to the Pies. and got found out a bit like that. We had a few delisted and lost Joey, but outside of that, our main core group's been together for years.
There's a little bit of similarity with the Joe Danaher, Nathan Murphy leaving the side, because they're both big pieces.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's just a question.
I just feel like a key defensive loss is more significant than a key forward.
Yeah.
And Brisbane's back six is just so rock solid that and Coleman's just gonna obviously we saw Zorko come into his own, taking over as that distributor off half back, but having Coleman there is just, it just frees up. You can move the magnets around. Zorko can play a bit more wing, whatever. I think they're really set.
I mean, we've got our Wilmot back there too, who's been unreal. I did hear the other day, I don't know if you guys saw, but Coleman did have a little bit of a setback with the ACL. They don't have an exact timeline, but I'm hoping it's not too many weeks. But hopefully he's back by, round 4 or 5. But poor guy, because he can't seem to get it right. He's had a couple setbacks now.
Is there any news on Duday as well?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I've been waiting to kind of see something about him, but I haven't.
Sorry, I thought you meant there was... Nah, I heard he was tracking well.
Okay.
Potentially play a little bit in pre-season, I think, but I haven't heard an update for a while. So
he's a bit forgotten, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like you generally hear more updates when something goes wrong than right with an ACL. So on that sense, it's probably fingers crossed good news. But he'll be an important cog too.
We talked about the draft cropped already a little bit, but I mean, a side that wins a flag doesn't normally get the best player in the draft, and I feel like that's what they've done with Levi Ashcroft.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he went pick 5, but I think most of us know if you're in a free market, he would have gone pick 1. How do you feel now? Because obviously, I mean, you might have Joe Danaher leaving, you got Levi Ashcroft coming in. But obviously, different position. You've got a lot of great midfielders. You've got Dunkley, McCluggage. I mean, how are you guys going to juggle this? Do you think Levi maybe plays a different position to start off with, or how do you think it might?
Yeah, I've thought about it a bit. I don't know. I feel like when Will first came in, they played him a little bit more, wing, rotating through the half forward kind of thing. I think if they play Levi straight up, which most people think they will, there might be that bit of rotation. And again, then who's the stiff one that goes out? Is it Jasper Fletcher on a wing who did nothing wrong? Had a great back end of the year.
Off the midfield, do you think Dunkley could play forward a little bit more?
I do. He's got the height. Even Berry has he's underratedly tall. He's 192. Can take a mark. Him and Dunkley are the ones that could go up there. And I think they started playing Dunks a bit more up there later on in the year. So that'll be a watch. Yeah.
Part of the problem is that where can a player like Lachie Neale play? If not inside mid, there's certain names that are just penciled in that midfield, and you go, well, how are we going to manage the rotations of all these different?
You almost
midfielders?
have to start looking at these midfielders and go, we need to get some versatility in positions. Just because you don't have long careers, like McCluggage signed a long contract, so you want to have a few more positions they can kind of retire into, I guess.
So Joel, all things considered, and everyone's fit. Who's the starting midfield? Give me ruck and the three mids that you'd have first stoppage of a game.
Ruck, obviously Oscar. You put him back in there. You got to stick with Neil. Dunkley's in there for me.
Yeah,
and I'll put Will Ashcroft in, just because I think McCluggage might push a bit more out onto the wing. Again. But I do love him inside. I just think Dunkley, again, he may rotate a bit more forward, but I love his ability to hunt the ball and kind of shut down the opposition. And that's a really underrated thing in footy always.
Is it possibly, I'll probably maybe ask this to Flynn, is it possibly the best midfield in the league, Lions?
It's in the conversation.
Frio's pretty good as well.
Freo, I would say them along with Freo, maybe GWS.
Yeah.
There's some good... Port Adelaide's got a very good midfield as well. But I think in terms of in terms of like if you're going your three best versus someone else's three best, I think they're up there. But I think in terms of midfield depth, they're easily number one.
Yeah.
They've just got, guys. There's guys that can't get into that midfield that would be first picked at different other clubs.
Yeah.
So
It's crazy.
yeah.
Let's move on to the individual accolades and let's talk about the Brownlow. Do we see anybody possibly from the Lions?
Lockie Neal going for
Lockie
a
Neal,
try.
maybe going for a third.
Not quite this year, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Have you heard much? Because obviously he had the foot injury in the grand final. Have you heard much about his? Is he all fine?
Haven't really heard much, but I haven't heard that he's been restricted much
Yeah.
either. So
I feel like I haven't heard a lot about the Brisbane. I feel like they're keeping it a bit under wraps. Bit
The,
Geelong.
Yeah.
the Premiers always go into the next season with not much like fanfare because the pre-season is where all of the losers get to dream. That's where like all the teams that have struggled are like, this is going to be our year. The Premiers sort of just sit back and...
One thing I did actually just think of is I did hear that Levi Ashcroft, which they kept on big ice, was he had minor shoulder surgery in the off season. I think he just had a clean up in there. Shout out to Jasper Fletcher. He was the one that revealed that in a press conference. So again, maybe that they push him through the VFL a little bit more because of that.
I'd be upset if I didn't see him. Opening round or
Yeah. But no, that's one in there. But
played Geelong first
we
game?
do.
That's a big game.
I love it.
That's a big
Love it.
game.
Up at the
Bailey
Gabba.
Smith.
How confident are you that the Lions can keep the Gabba run going? I guess because they weren't as great at the Gabba last year as they were the year before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think they can just remake that into a fortress now?
I do. I mean, I think teams have kind of worked out how to play it a little bit better as well. But when there's a packed house atmosphere, especially a night game, like we just know how to play it so well. I just think last year it was a lot of the losses there were early when we were struggling overall as a team with all that, off-field distractions before the year, all that stuff. Again, how much impact did that have? We will never know. But, towards the back end of the year, we kind of regained the form there. So I wouldn't see any reason we can't hold that into this season.
Can you believe that my mob, Collingwood, beat Brisbane twice last year and didn't make the finals? If you told me after 2023 you're going to beat Brisbane twice next year, I'm thinking minor Premiers.
What was that? Round 5 was that wooden spoon grudge match, wasn't it? We were both like 1 and 4 or 0 and 3. Sorry,
I
round
think like
4.
the last 4 or 5 Premiers Hawthorn have all beaten during the season.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's depressing.
just the way it goes sometimes.
Just a waste.
Can we see anybody possibly win a Coleman at the Lions?
Nah.
Probably not this year.
Not this year.
Nah.
Who do you think will kick the most goals then, at least?
I'll go with Charlie.
Yeah.
But it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if Loman kicked the most goals.
I
anyway,
thought-
so-
I thought you were
I
gonna
thought
say
you might
that.
say Logan Morris.
Yeah, I
so?
love Logan. I just think he's still a bit
still a bit
raw.
more development, yeah.
Key forward, second year, and it is a bit easier copping the third key defender.
No Danaher now.
A lot of teams probably they have 2 really good key backs, and their third there's a bit of a drop off.
Yeah.
But again, we'll see if he holds his own in the contest and doesn't get outmarked. That's probably a good win. Yeah.
I had Cameron as well for most goals.
Yeah.
But then to go to the next thing, I have Lohman as my potential sneaky All-Australian
that's
as
a big call.
as a small forward or half forward.
The problem with Lohman, I mean, he'll have to kick a big bag, I feel like, to make it.
The hair stands out, mate. People are looking out for him. Honestly, he is a talent. So the first time I properly took notice of him was when he kicked 5 against Richmond.
Yeah.
And then after that, he just kicked 2 every week. Like he just was in a purple patch.
Yeah. He's an exceptional talent.
Yeah.
All Australian, do you have anybody who you think might be maybe outside of the usual names potentially, or who hasn't been before?
Yeah, I'm a huge Hugh McCluggage guy. I always have been. I'm hoping this is the year, but with the stacked midfield. I mean, he's made the squad of 40 a couple of times, I think, back in the days where they refused to select wingers.
Yeah.
But outside of him, geez, nothing to say Zorko couldn't do it again.
Yeah, true.
Even if I don't think Coleman will be in there. Just he might take a little bit to get going.
Normally
coming off the
I
injury.
think Starcevic as well as a lockdown
Yeah,
defender.
good shout.
I'm not sure if there's a better. Look, I think there's a couple of guys on par. I think Connor Iden at GWS is one man, but there's a couple of really good lockdown smalls, and Starcevic had a brilliant final series.
I hate some of the mid smaller defenders who kind of get those spots where I feel like you need
Because they go off,
Correct.
They go off disposals and stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, Stas obviously didn't have a great 2023 granny, but last year was unbelievable. Happily kicked that goal early where he ran off the bench and got a couple meters on him.
I top three on the day.
Other than that, I think he had 4 more touches for the game, Papley. So Stas was a real clam.
That final series, it just felt like Brisbane's back 50 was just a brick wall. Like they just couldn't.
Even Ryan Lester was the one. He was unbelievable. The 1 year contract specialist stood up again.
That game against Geelong when they were under fire, they just kept like out marking and out pointing Geelong going forward. I'm like, far out, these guys are good.
Oh, crazy. I had Will Ashcroft down. I just think with the Norm Smith under his belt now, I feel like he's the one everyone's going to be talking about. And I could see him having a massive year. Who will win the Lions BNF?
Jeez, raffle a few here.
Yeah, there's a few different options. I'll start because you've just mentioned him, but Starcevic, I think, could just have a really good year.
Has Brisbane ever gone sort of a bit left field like Gold Coast do with their BNF where they just pick defenders?
No, I mean Harris Andrews... I think he's won at least one.
Who won it last year?
Jeez, I can't even remember.
I think it was Lachie Neale. I have a feeling it was Lachie Neale.
Yeah, I do think it was. But I know Harris is, they obviously rate him. It's not just all the midfields up there.
That's what I like about the BNFs. You get a nicer picture.
I do think Starcevic has been up there, especially last year as well. So hopefully it's another situation of a kind of outsider that comes up. But, your usual suspects will be up there. It's just...
All right, give us a name so we can come back to it at the end of the year.
Bit of an outsider, potentially, Josh Dunkley.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Well, he's a BNF winner at the Bulldogs, so
he is.
He's the type of guy that the coaches would love him.
Yeah. And it's also those defensive acts for me. Like he's just...
He had a great year last year as well. Yeah, probably just overshadowed by a couple other big names.
Yeah, his year last year was much better. I think 2023, he did his ankle potentially in the game against West Coast, or that was a game he missed. And he never really recovered after that. He kind of dropped off. Like his tackling and effort was still there, but just ball winning ability kind of dropped off a little.
He's killed multiple multis for me, where I have him for disposals, and then he decides this is going to be the game I have 12 tackles and tag someone out of the game.
All right, moving on to wrap up our episode. Any breakout stars or underrated? I might go first because all my names have been already taken. So breakout, I think Kai Lohmann, take his game to another level. Underrated, Starcevic, and I think Logan Morris just for his opening year.
My one's a bit different because it's a breakout, but not in the sense of like announcing yourself. I think Cam Rayner, and I mean announcing himself to being like the next level, like where he's like considered one of the best players in the league. Like he's never been All-Australian before, but like last year we saw like glimpses of like especially I think it was in that prelim against Geelong, took a huge mark, kicked the winner. Like I think he has the capabilities to be like an Isaac Heaney. And I think this year we'll see like him elevate his level. For me,
Lohmann was the one there. I think I did say him last time I was on, but I think he'll get even better. Was thinking about Cam Rayner. The one thing I will say is, does he potentially play a little bit more forward with no Danaher and Levi coming in? The one I would like to see have a bigger breakout, I feel like he dropped off a little bit last year, and he's super damaging when he plays inside, is Zach Bailey. He 2023 had a really good year, and then he dropped off. I don't know, it was whether he didn't get the mid-time or confidence was a bit down, but if he can get back to what we've seen, he'll have a real
Am I right in saying both players, I think especially in that final series, kind of moved a little bit down half back in certain stages and kind of works the ball up?
Yeah, I definitely Bailey did.
Yeah.
I think I remember him taking a defensive mark against Geelong, like 30 out from his own goal, and then he had that big run along the wing where he hit that bullet into and just opened everything up. I know that was an effort from Fagan and the coaching staff to kind of get him more involved because everyone knows how damaging he is. I think Rayner did that all year, really. Like, it wasn't really a change for him. He definitely played a lot more midfield, and they kind of worked out that perfect split with him. So he kind of took that level of his game to a different level.
What year did Rayner do an ACL? I feel like it was 2 or 3 years ago.
It was more than, I think it was 3 years ago.
But I feel like some guys sometimes like can take a while to really like get the confidence back. And I reckon last year was his best year, like post that ACL. He just looked really good.
Yeah.
Well, it was real pivotal to them winning the flag, I think, as well.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Just stepped up at good times.
Yeah, we saw a different side to him too. Like, you'll see the odd centre bounce or stoppage where he'll break out, use the kind of core strength and shrug a couple off. But we saw that a lot more often. And he was getting a lot more centre bounce action, especially when Will Ashcroft still was out and not in the side. So I'd like to see him stay in there. But again, you got that many blokes in there. How do you kind of juggle all the time?
Yeah.
No, definitely. Look, I think that's a good way to wrap up our Brisbane episode. Thank you so much, Joel, for coming down.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem,
giving
guys.
us his
Appreciate
expertise on the Lions, and hopefully, you boys maybe can push to go back to back.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
See how
crossed.
we go.
No, congrats, Lions. Well deserving premiers.
Cheers. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.